Hey, what's going on, guys? I wanted to do this video on this very cool bottle of whiskey. Now, this bottle is very special, not because it tastes really good or it's really expensive or anything like that. It's just, it's very rich in history. This is a bottle of Prohibition whiskey, okay? If you don't know what the Prohibition was in the United States, of course there were multiple prohibitions, but specifically the U.S. Prohibition lasted between 1920 and 1933. And it was the law, the 18th Amendment, in fact, stating that selling, making, or transporting any kind of liquor was illegal. And one misconception a lot of people have is that, it was illegal to drink alcohol, and that, in fact, was not true. If you happen to be consuming alcohol, you're doing nothing wrong. In the whole, 1920s and 1933, it was legal. It was okay to drink liquor. However, you couldn't make it, you couldn't buy it, and you couldn't move it. So, just like today's laws, which are not perfect, it's like with knives. A lot of places it's illegal to purchase, automatic knives or balisongs or have them shipped to you. It's illegal. However, if somehow you get it, you're allowed to have it. It doesn't really make much sense. But anyway, I recently acquired this bottle. It was extremely, extremely dirty, and I cleaned it up, I think, pretty nicely. And I want to make a video on it. I think it has a fascinating past. I want to talk a little, general information here as well. But yeah, this is Prohibition whiskey. Now, there's a couple reasons I could guarantee it's Prohibition whiskey. The first being its labeling. Okay, so let's take a look at the bottle here. First, it says Old Style Whiskey. That's the brand, not just the type. It doesn't mean it's any different than other kinds of whiskey. It's just, it was the brand name. Depicts a little, cabin in there. By the way, I don't know anything about Old Style brand. So if you guys have any more information about this or know, a good direction to go to find more information about this, please let me know. Because my personal research through Google, I like that. I really researched it. No, I just typed it in Google. I couldn't figure anything out. So more information on that would be gratefully appreciated. So anyway, Old Style brand whiskey, right? But there's some secondary labels, and what I mean by that is that when this was put in the bottle and sealed up, there was a couple labels put on it, right? And then at a later point, there were more labels put on. So let me turn my camera down a little bit here so you can see this a little better. I don't have to hold it up in the air. So, yeah, the original label here was Old Style Whiskey. And then on the top here, it had a security seal. Now, sometimes these security seals had the tax information on it. This one did not because it came from a crate, and I'll talk about that in a minute as well. But you can see the seal itself is not punctured or broken in any way. All right, and then it says, see that this seal is not broken. I think that's what it says, broken. I gotta look at it. Yeah. See that the seal is not broken. All right, just like today's security seals, it's to show that it was not tampered with, that you do have the original contents in the bottle. So you don't have to worry about poisoning or things going bad or people mixing other stuff in, okay? So the one thing I could say about this that's pretty cool too is some of the older bottles of whiskey you'll find from like the 60s and 70s that still had the security seals on it. A lot of them are screw tops, and people can literally just unscrew the top, pour out the contents, drink it, whatever, put whatever they want in the bottle and screw it back down. And even then they'll say that, over time the seal does crack a little bit, but people might say like, oh, it's the original stuff. No, you can't trust that. If the seal is broken, it's broken. You don't know if the contents are original. But however, with this specific bottle, the fact that it's a cork here, not only is the seal not broken in any position, but there's also a seal on top. And obviously, in order to get the cork out, you'd have to use a corkscrew or some other kind of implement, and there's no damage at all to that seal. So I know that the liquid in this bottle is in fact the original liquid that was put in the bottle in the, what I've come to believe, the early 30s, okay? So anyway, let's look at these labels again. On the bottom here, as a secondary label, in other words, put on later, is a pharmacy label. Okay, it says Fuller Morris & Co., Wholesale Druggists, Chicago. Now, it's also important with this bottle, too, is the label that's on the reverse here. Now, this was your tax information, okay? This was proof that this bottle came from a crate which had the tax information on there. If this needed to be traced back to its original source so that, you know, the authorities would realize or know that it was not bootleg alcohol, that it was in fact licensed alcohol, which again during the Prohibition was just prescribed booze. That's it. You couldn't make it, you couldn't sell it, you couldn't buy it, you couldn't transport it. However, if you were prescribed it by your doctor, then you can have it, and that's what this was. At one point in, let's say, early 1930s, someone got a prescription from their doctor, okay, went down there and picked up this medicine, if you will. And it's interesting to find that they never drank it. I don't know what the story was, but, you know, all these years later, it ended up on my my living room table here, my coffee table. So, anyway, label on the back here, it says taken from tax-paid package, and then there's room to put in the information. And this has a serial number on it. Now, again, this would correspond with the wooden crate that this originally came from. Okay, since the tax information is not directly on this bottle, it has to have information on the bottle that will track it to whatever source it came from. And this label also matches the one on the front, the same Fuller Morris & Co. Now, I looked into Fuller Morris & Co., and they were in fact a legit pharmacy for many years that did distribute medical alcohol. They were later purchased out and everything, but that doesn't really mean much. I just wanted to mention that it is in fact a real drug company, and this is all legit. So I thought it was really, really cool. Now again, the U.S. Prohibition started in 1920 and ended in 1933. So this bottle is definitely between that time frame. Some other proof that it became, you know, it was in that time frame is some minor details about the bottle itself, not just the labels, but you know, the seam on the bottle. If you guys can see this line that runs here, this is a machining seam, which means this is not pre-prohibition alcohol, okay? Because before the Prohibition, the doctors still did prescribe alcohol for ailments such as pain. It was a pain reliever, okay? It's not like you can go there and get, you know, go to the doctor and just get an Advil. I mean, it just didn't exist. You went to the doctor and he either gave you booze or heroin. Even kids. Heroin and cocaine was prescribed for kids as well as adults for, you know, for painkillers for a long time. But anyway, that's for a whole separate video. But you can see the seam here. All right, now just knowing that the seam runs from the bottom of the bottle. Wow, I'm really tongue-tied today. All the way up. And now you can't see it, but I can feel it underneath these seals here. It runs all the way up to the very top. Now what that means is that this bottle was manufactured no earlier than 1910. Okay? Had this been pre-prohibition alcohol, it could still have a seam on the bottle, but it would not have run all the way up. Okay? Most likely. Now again, there are some years from 1910 till 1920. You have a decade there where you have a chance to have a bottle just like this that still is pre-prohibition. But, you know, it's a possibility. It's probably unlikely for this specific bottle because of other reasons, but it is a possibility. Some other things to date the bottle as well are imperfections. Early on in the production of mass-produced bottles like this, or machine bottles, there were imperfections in the glass, such as bubbles, you know, air bubbles. And as I turn this around, let me try to find an example here for you. Let's see. Here's a good one, real easy to see. That's an air bubble in the glass itself. It's not in the liquid inside the bottle, it's the actual glass. This is just a mistake. They're not supposed to be air bubbles in the glass, but this is early on in our history of people making bottles, you know what I mean? And they were trying to perfect the art of making bottles, and they just stumbled upon this idea of using a machine to do it, you know, and they're trying to get the kinks out and perfect this. But early on, it wasn't perfect, and there were air bubbles. All right, now this is a larger bubble that's a little bit rarer to find. Very early on, you'd find them like this and pretty consistent throughout the whole bottle. But as time went on, they got better and better with the machines, and they figured out how to do it better. Now, a lot of times you'll see what's known as a seed. And a seed is basically the same thing. It's an air bubble in the glass, but it's much smaller. And I don't know what the lighting in this room, if you guys can pick this up, but there's lots of little seeds here. These little dots. Let me try to get the fingerprints off. All these little dots are air bubbles in the glass. They're not chips in the glass, nothing like that. They're all little air bubbles. So they were known as seeds. So just by looking at the different information on the bottle, all the way down to this, where it's embossed 1 quart, I believe it was 1917. Actually, you know what? I think it's on the back. Yeah, underneath our text thing here, it says, inventoried under Act of Congress of October 3rd, 1917. Whoop, I'm not in frame here. And that's that Act of Congress stated from 1917 on that all bottles or containers that held anything for medicinal reasons or food, anything that you're supposed to eat, stuff like that, did have to be labeled its volume or its quantity. In this case, because it is a liquid, it's volume, which is 1 quart, so it's clearly marked on here. So all these little tiny details with the bottle and the label, you can kind of get an idea of when this is from. So it's guaranteed that this bottle was produced between 1910 and 1933. Okay, I don't know exactly what year, but it's in that range. Now let's just say it was produced in 1933. Okay, the latest it could be produced. That would make this bottle 79 years old today. In 2012. 79 years old. That's an old bottle. That's the youngest it could be. It could be older than that. Let's say, best case scenario, it was made in 1910. Okay, tack on another 13 years. So, I mean, come on, that's a really, really old bottle. It's amazing, like I said, that not only did the bottle not break all this time, but no one drank it. I mean, Prohibition, the one time that alcohol is the demand is at its highest in history, It's like anything else. If we're not allowed to have it, we just want it. It's just human nature. We want things we can't have. It becomes more appealing to us when we're not allowed it. Think about being a little kid. You can't have that piece of candy. You really want it. You're not allowed it. But now it's your goal to get that piece of candy, right? So it's really fascinating to me. I thought it was really, really cool. Now keep in mind too, this is when this bottle was manufactured or made. Okay, this was bottled at least 79 years ago. The liquor inside, the whiskey itself, is definitely older. Okay, you can see the color in here. We have a very deep amber, almost like a bronze color. Now, you don't get color from alcohol being in the bottle. You get the color from it being in the cask. So having such a dark liquor here, and this is the only factor that I don't know about entirely, and I mentioned this in the alcohol video, is that some alcohols have caramel added to it. It's coloring. It's so you can get a consistent product. I don't know if in the late 20s, early 30s, if they used caramel in their liquor as well for the same purposes. If that's the case, then the color doesn't, tell me anything. But if they did not use caramel, during that time period, then the darker color will tell me that it was in cask or barrel for a very long time. So, and doing my research, alcohol back then was still aged the same as it is today. Okay, the average bottle of whiskey is going to be aged in cask or barrel, just another name for the barrel is a cask. But it's usually aged anywhere from at least 3 years on up to like 12 years is average. Okay, so let's just say about 10 years. We're looking at roughly a 90-plus-year-old bottle of booze. That's old. That is some old liquor. So I just thought it was really fascinating. Now the follow-up question here is, okay, Jeff, what are you going to do? You going to pop it open and try some? I just don't know. I really don't. For now, I don't have plans to, but things change, Things always change. But I just think it's a really cool, fascinating piece. It's a conversation piece, If anyone's looking at, the different liquor that I have, like on display, and they see this, they might say, oh, what's that about? And you can tell a story, start a conversation. That's the whole idea behind conversation starters, right? But as far as like collecting goes, it is like a collector's piece. If you look on various auction sites, and eBay is obviously the most popular, you'll find that Prohibition whiskey in mint condition gets about $300 a bottle. And those could be those little flask sized bottles. But this isn't in perfect condition, nor is it like, a famous brand or anything. So I'm not really concerned with what it's worth. It's for me, it's just something to always keep and display, and eventually, one day, pop open and try. But I thought it'd be really fun to make a video on this and just talk a little bit about it. I wish I paid more attention in school. And I remember learning about prohibition in school and all that kind of stuff. And I just didn't care back then. But as I mentioned before, it's never too late to educate. So I'm learning about it now. And it's interesting to me. So I thought I'd share with you guys. I don't know if I showed you this before, but the label, sorry if I'm being repetitive, it's just, I talk and talk and I don't know what I say. But on the neck here, there's a label that goes over the seal and says, this choice whiskey is specially adapted for family and medical purposes. Specially adapted for family and medical purposes. No, not really, it's just taxed that way. I'm sure there was a heavy tax on it back then too. So anyway, like I said, about 80 years ago, someone walked into the pharmacy, gave them their prescription, and got this bottle. And today, 2012, it's sitting on my table. Why? I don't know, but it is. It is what it is. So that's all. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, something different, and enjoyed making it. So again, I don't know what the future holds for this particular bottle. Eventually, I will probably give it a go and see what it tastes like. But that's pretty much it. So thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.